Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the 8th Oman Energy Forum, where we're really tackling a big aspect of a project that's taken place since 2015 today, and that's our Oman Energy Master Plan 2040. Essentially, it stems back to 2015, where we had gathered the top 100 CEOs in Oman to really create a roadmap for the future. And within that exercise, we established 5 pillars that we've been addressing every year at our Oman Energy Forum. The first one was energy demand, the second, energy supply, then R&D, labor, and of course, today's theme, which is water, food, energy nexus. So the idea for today is to really uncover some recommendations and actions and solutions that can be put forward, of course, for Oman to implement and as well the wider region in this space of water, food, energy nexus. I'm joined with our distinguished speaker today, Dr. Antonio Sanfilippo, Chief Scientist, Energy Management Program Director at the Qatar Environment and Energy Research Institute, QEERI, which he'll be touching on sustainable farming, optimizing food security with efficient use of energy and water in desert environments. Just some housekeeping before we start. The session will be 30 minutes. The first half will be presentation by Dr. Antonio, and then we'll open it up to the audience for Q&A for 15 minutes. Please feel free to put your questions in the chat box. We'll answer them after the presentation. And of course, all sessions today, including this, will be uploaded immediately to our events page where all the attendees have also registered. That being said, Dr. Antonio, I'd like to hand it off to you.
Thank you. Thank you, Brian, for the introduction. And it's great to be here with you all today. This is a very important topic, especially for all the countries in the Gulf, and one that deserves attention. So I'm going to be talking about 3 main points. First, I'm going to start with a few thoughts on the connection between energy, water, and food in desert environments. Then I talk a little bit about sustainable farming solution and what the ensuing benefits might be. And then I'll finish off talking about how to achieve high quality agricultural produce using with efficient use of water and electricity. Okay, so when we look at agriculture activities in desert environments, the major challenge is the availability of arable land and water. And as you can see in if we take the case of Qatar, if you can see the first 2 pictures on the bottom left, is that water is very scarce, especially water suitable for irrigation, where you need to have below 2,000 parts ppm of TDS, of solids in the water. And that it's, as you can see from the picture, it's very small area in Qatar. And also arable land, again, very small. I think there was a survey of a recent survey from the World Bank assessed that about 1-3% of land in Qatar is arable. So how do you address the problem of food security in this situation? Well, fortunately there are opportunities. First of all, there are alternative special cultivation types. For example, there was a study from the Ministry of Municipal Environment at Qatar University recently in 2015 that concluded that date palms trees can be cultivated on the coast. And of course, there's always the opportunity of indoor farming, in particular hydroponic farming, which is now starting to take place in Qatar and other areas in the Gulf. The problem is the reach of power. Without power, you cannot do any of these things. As you can see on the last picture, power is usually very available in gentrified areas, but not so much on the periphery or in rural areas, especially on the coast. And on the picture, essentially the magenta color gives you an idea of the extent of the electricity reached from the power grid. So an obvious solution here is to use solar PV power, renewable energy power, to essentially power agricultural activities, and in particular reverse osmosis, which is water treatment, so essentially using the electricity to push the water through the membrane and desalinate the water. And this would allow us to have water in those areas where there is no reachable electricity, so in those black areas in the map, and also on the coast and also in inland. So again, if you look at the picture on the right, a lot of the areas, due to seawater level rising and overuse of water, a lot of the ground well water is being contaminated, and you need to treat it. You cannot use it for agriculture. So obviously, having PV powered reverse osmosis in the central areas where you have water wells would be good. Then auxiliaries activities or technologies that you can use, obviously storage to achieve more independence from the grid or from diesel generators, which are not environmentally sustainable. So you can use batteries. That comes with the cost, but the cost is going down. You can use so that you can get inventive and desalinate water when you have excess energy, and then store fresh water. And storing water in a container is obviously cheaper than storing energy in batteries. And and there are other solutions, some of which may be very interesting. Hydrogen storage in particular, and I know Oman has a big project, I think a 50 megawatt green hydrogen creation generation plant that it's planned. So that's something that may be coming available in the future. So there are a lot of benefits from using PV, solar PV, renewable energy to power of agricultural activity. In particular, saving fossil fuels can give you a windfall on a variety of areas. So, for example, here are some figures that I worked out by megawatt hour. So for each megawatt hour of electricity that you produce with renewable energy, you're basically saving about 8 million British thermal units of gas, about 71 gallons of diesel. And if you were to sell these quantities on the international market today, it will give you about $39 and $170 for diesel. You think that there are many thousands and thousands of megawatt hours being saved with solar energy, so it could be a lot of money. On the environmental side, there's a lot of reduction of carbon emissions, especially with respect to diesel, and there are obvious health benefits. There's estimated 6.5 million people per year dying from air pollution-related disease, according to World Health Organization. Another important benefits comes from carbon trading emission, and I'm gonna switch to the next slides. Sorry for the small print, but basically the small print describes the various programs that are at the moment ongoing around the world. Carbon trading is something that is very much information at the moment. There's a little bit of let's call it chaos in the system, so to speak. You go from very high prices like nearly $140 per ton of oil equivalent for Sweden, and then just a few dollars in other areas. But this is something that is going to advance and become more and kind of gel into something which is more practicable from the point of view of economics, because the world has to obviously do something about environmental change. So I want to switch now to give you a specific example of what an application of solar and water for agriculture might be like. And this is like a farm microgrid that we recently developed. So we have about 50 kilometers southwest of those. So as you can see from the map, it's really in the middle of the country. There are two wells in the farm, which, as I was saying before, due to overuse and seawater level rising, have become high in salinity. So you can't use the water there to irrigate food, for food crops, food crops. So with that, we have installed about 30 kilowatts of solar PV and a brackish water reverse osmosis system, which is able to produce about 150 cubic meter of water per day. And also very important, we established a solar pond. We installed a solar pond, and you can see like the pond just behind the people there. And it's very important because, you desalinate water, you create brine. If you put the brine back into the ground, you exacerbate the problem of water salinity. So you use the solar pond to evaporate the brine, essentially. And we've done this in partnership with the farm owner, who's recently installed about 26 greenhouses. So I want to just give you a kind of a broad brush of how the whole thing works. So, you got the 30 kilowatt PV connected to the inverters. You got the loads, and this is an on-grid system, so it's connected to the Kaharama utility grid. Everything comes together in the grid connection room, and obviously the loads are satisfied by the PV energy, which is the closest being generated. And when that is not enough, then the grid enters and provides the electricity. And I'd like to quickly point there that the use, what makes the whole thing smart here is a programmable logic controller, the PLC box that you see in the grid connection room, which is actually you can configure to use the PV in an optimal way. So, for example, remember I was saying you can desalinate when you have excess energy and store it with water. This is something that you would program in the unit there, and also any storage strategy. And that's also what we use to regulate the interaction with the grid. So at the moment, for example, you cannot put the energy from solar PV into the power grid. The utility does not allow that. This is something that's going to change very soon. So for the time being, we have programmed the PLC so that when the loads are less than the available PV, then we essentially curtail the PV to avoid putting energy onto the grid. Again, this is something that's going to change. Recently, we're probably going to put a meter to do something like net metering, and then any excess energy we put in the power grid will be remunerated in some form. Okay, I want to turn now a little bit to indoor farming, and as I was saying, it's an alternative to provide all-year farming in desert climbing. And in particular, hydroponics provide a very interesting alternative because there's no soil needed, so you bypass the soil problem. And also, using vertical farming, as you can see from the picture there, you can increase, you can get a really high plant density. A lot less water use, a lot less fertilizers, and this water savings and nutrient savings can be even increased in using closing systems, where essentially you recirculate the water in the greenhouse. Another interesting innovation here is aquaponics. So essentially using fish farming as a source of organic nutrients for plant growing. So you do fish farming and vegetable or fruit farming at the same time. Very interesting. It's starting to take more and more place all around the world. And in Qatar, there are several examples of that. Obviously, these are all new practices that come with higher operational complexity. And also you have to be very careful because they're cross systems, so you have to really adhere very closely to sanitation norms to avoid problems. So how do you solve this problem? How do you make the whole thing a little bit simpler? Well, our idea, and this is a project we just started, it's funded by the Ministry of Municipality and Environment, Qatar National Research Fund, in collaboration with Agrico, which is the main, one of the main, I would say probably the main agricultural producer in Qatar. University of Malaysia, Pahang, and the ministry. And the idea here is to use Internet of Things sensors and artificial intelligence automation to simplify the operational complexity of this new technology. So what this means in specifics is the use of a variety of sensors, cameras, humidity sensors, and so on and so forth, to collect data about water, ambient soil, plant and plant growth. And then you basically process this data using machine learning techniques, forecasting, classification, whatever, to essentially make an assessment to model plant health and growth and suggest intervention measures. Here I have a little high level picture of how this works. So it kind of breaks down in two main areas: what happens in the farms and what happens in our labs. In the farms, you have, in the greenhouses, you have all the sensors collect information. Then you have microcontrollers that are connected to the sensor that essentially do a little bit of edge computing, kind of putting the data together and shipping them to the labs, to the cloud server in the labs, where you do the kind of the AI-based modeling, so a lot of machine learning models. And the models essentially you use to provide monitoring and control feedback information to the farm. There's a control unit at the farm that now takes this information to make specific action, change the balance of the nutrients, add water, remove water, whatever needs to be done. Okay, so in conclusion, I would say that a perfect water energy connubium, really the two things have to be well in step lock. In indoor farming, it's necessary to foster sustainable food security in desert environment, and it's perhaps the only way in which we can achieve food security through year-round cultivation in these areas. Farm microgrids, like the one I described earlier, that use renewable energy to power water treatment and other farm operation, provide a variety of benefits. And at the same time enable farming activities in areas that are not reached by the national power grid. And in particular, the use of power electronics and artificial intelligence method, it can be effectively used to optimize the use of PV energy to operate the loads that you find in the farm. So, and finally, that's a little bit an innovative element that it's coming more and more. You can use what's called artificial intelligence of things, so the kind of combination of IoT sensor and AI automation to simplify the operational complexity in indoor farm and also achieve high quality produce, agricultural produce, with an efficient use of water and electricity. And I think this is all I have. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Dr. Antonio. I just want to take a step back, and of course, as we're addressing, the overall challenges of the water food energy nexus today, in this forum, to get your insights in terms of course, the innovative solutions that you're putting forward in this space, on what you see are kind of the challenges towards implementation. We've had recommendations and action plans over the years with this Oman Energy Master Plan, for example, but inevitably it comes down to implementation and carrying things forward. What are the challenges that you're seeing in that space, and how do you think we can accelerate that aspect and take action?
Yeah, thank you very much, Brian. That's a very important question. Obviously, there are various challenges. From the point of view, if you look upon from the side of energy, which it's the side that I'm particularly interested in, the problem is to regulate the use of renewable energy, and I would say, unfortunately, this area of the world lags a little bit behind, the West in terms of regulatory framework for renewable energy. It's coming, but it's difficult to do so. For example, as I was saying before, in several countries in this area, you don't have regulatory framework for solar energy. So you cannot put solar energy into the grid, and that's a big limitation. The other thing is that again, looking at energy, there is a question of subsidies for oil and gas. So there are still big subsidies. They come down quite a bit, but there are still big subsidies for oil and gas. And obviously, that's going to make it a little more difficult to uptake solar, renewable energy. It's going to cost me a lot more to do solar energy as opposed to do a diesel generator or hook up to the grid. Obviously, I'm not going to do it. And the problem is that the price of electricity produced with fossil fuel especially for farming, are so low that so even with solar energy come down so much in price. Nowadays you're talking about, for utility, talking about nearly a cent a kilowatt hour. Is still a little bit difficult.
And just a follow up on that, of course, we always talk about regulation and stakeholders, industry, academia, government, but of course, society is kind of the other pillar to that chair. Are you seeing awareness around these issues from a societal standpoint, understanding the waste and really the challenges that we're trying to address in the food segment at the moment?
Yeah, it's. I think public awareness is very important because if you get pressure from if you get kind of bottom-up pressure, then the governments obviously need to do things. I would say though that if you look at Qatar, for example, there's a strong commitment to environmental sustainability. So Qatar has taken made very big step. Like for example, committing to achieving 20% of total energy production by solar energy by 2030. That's a big step. 10% of transportation electrification by 2030. So there is, but definitely you need a concerted effort by all parts of society. Government, the public, universities, research centers.
Well, with universities and research centers, what I find interesting looking at Qatar is they've focused, really on accelerating R&D in a sense. You have Academic City, HBKU, you have Texas A&M, establishing that ecosystem around R&D where there is alignment with industry to push things forward. From your experience in that space, as we look at Oman as well, what do you think is the best model to develop those partnerships for the Nexus challenges? What have you seen has been successful, and still kind of speed bumps along the way in terms of accelerating things?
Yeah, another very good question, Brian. One thing that has become very clear, and I've been in Qatar now, working at QEERI for 8 years. So and the institute started about 10
So
years.
you've seen the progress.
So we've seen the progress, and one thing that we realized that we have realized that in order to make an impact, you need to partner with the companies in the public sectors. So we've seen, because otherwise, what you do is stays kind of in the research bubble. It doesn't really make an impact. So
it stays on the bookshelf, essentially, right? Yeah.
Exactly. Or, maybe you have a nice demo or a nice system, but it's not changing the way people, live their lives. So we are now at QEERI, we made a big effort, especially in the last few years. And I think we're not the only ones, to work closely with companies that operate in Qatar. There are also companies, there's Qatar Energies, Total Energies, both companies from inside Qatar, and from outside Qatar. And you really need to partner with them. So for example, to give you an example, a tangible example of how the partnership works, we have, at QEERI, we have established a network of solar monitoring stations all around Qatar. So we have very reliable information about the solar radiation for all the country. Obviously, when people want to do, whether they're a local company or coming from outside, they want to do solar projects, solar energy projects, they need this data. So we partner with them, we give them the data, we work with them on how to use this data. So this is a simple example, but there are a lot of other things that we do. So for example, nowadays, when a lot of companies do projects, solar PV projects in the country, they come to us and they ask us to evaluate the project, from does it make sense, does it comply with the standards, with the CARAM, the utility regulation, and so on and so forth. So that is absolutely necessary.
Yeah, of course, data sharing obviously is going to be essential in order to even make any progress in these spaces. R&D, I think, especially from these institutes, they're always thinking forward ahead, and it's a critical aspect of things where sometimes you have industry just wants a off-the-shelf type of implementation of tools. But it seems that in Qatar, things have progressed to a great position where both are being theoretical and practical and taken into consideration. One of my questions too is, obviously, in order to support that ecosystem, you need the right talent. You need talent around this space. We're talking about energy transition, sustainability. PhD students, of course, are a big aspect to creating that ecosystem too. How do you see the development from the education side, then of course industry's participation in that development? How do you see that progressing in Qatar? And then what do you think are some models that can be essentially placed in Oman, who's kind of going through that initial phase at the moment?
Well, one thing that you've seen in Qatar and also other countries in the Gulf, like UAE and Oman and Bahrain, all other countries, is a big investment in education. Like if, for example, in Qatar is very, very important, and something that Sheikh Mossa, has really pioneered with education city. So now you're actually we're starting to have our own homegrown PhD, so to speak, in the area of energy sustainability. And you need to do that because you cannot continue to import brain from outside. At a certain point, you have to build your own base inside. So that is definitely happening, both in Qatar and UAE, all around the countries.
It looks like 30 minutes goes by pretty quickly, actually. So we're just about to wrap up, but I imagine we can take this conversation on for hours if we have the opportunity. I just wanted to thank you for your participation today, and of course, open the floor for any closing comments that you might have if you want to end it. Again, we're looking for an overall recommendation that we could put forward along this nexus that you think would be useful.
Thank you very much, Brian. It's been really a pleasure to be with you all here today, and thank you for the interesting questions. Again, I think the regulation is a big element here, because it provides the terrain to articulate these programs. Partnership with the private sector is another very important element, to make the impact. And of course, there is the collaboration with among research centers, funding from like the Qatar National Research Center, these kind of programs, because there are certain things you still need to do on the research side of things, to come up with the innovative solution that then you can apply on the web. But it's very important that whatever you develop, it has to eventually be transition in partnership with the private sector. Otherwise, you will make an impact.
Well, thank you, Dr. Antonio, for joining us today, and for all the attendees as well.